special call. Did I just go up there?
Hello, my name is Charity Johnson, and I am a senior at Overton High School. Today, I will be informing you about the upcoming events, discussions, and decisions to be made at today's board meeting. First off, Shelby County Schools have been approved of the state and federal grants for the Office of Coordinated School Health. Also, renovations will be taking place at schools such as East High School, Tresvant High, and Sheffield Elementary to improve their facilities and ensure that the students have a safe learning environment. In addition, this month's key performance indicator will focus on Priority 5 of Destination 2025. The goal is to mobilize family and community partners. Lastly, there will be a special called meeting immediately following today's work session to approve the superintendent's recommendation for charter school applications. Well, that's all I have for you today. Have a great night.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. I don't. I have it. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Shelby County Board of Education's August 21st work session. Ms. Anthony, please call the roll.
Board Member Caldwell, Board Member Oracle, Board Member Woods, Board Member Love, Board Member McCormick, Board Member Jones, Board Member Bibbs, Board Member Cornell,
Here.
Board Chair Avant.
Here.
You have 7 present.
We have a quorum. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. You have a couple. The question is now on the approval of the agenda. Superintendent, are there any amendments?
No amendments.
Okay. Okay. Seeing no amendments to the agenda, we're going to have I think we're going to need, there's minor adjustments. We're going to make those when we get to them. Seeing no amendments, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Board Member Caldwell, Board Member Oracle, Board Member Woods, Board Member Love, Board Member Jones, Board Member Bibbs, Board Member Cornell, Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 7 in the affirmative.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Tonight under my chair report, I wanted to just make sure to acknowledge the national holiday that we had yesterday. It was Billy Orgel's birthday, and in some places that is a national holiday. So I wanted to make sure to that we acknowledge that. And can we have just a quick
birthday song?
Birthday song from our parliamentarian?
Put on the
Please
calendar.
join me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Orgel. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Looking good for a man of 72.
Yes, so since we were able to acknowledge our national holiday, I appreciate that. And Billy, happy birthday to you from all of your board members. We know that during this time we're always wanting to make sure to uplift those that we care about. And so during this time where you've had so much going on, we want to continue to tell you how much we care about you.
If you permit me, I really appreciate all the board members. As we know, we've had some tragedy the last year. I know Mike's son, Stephanie's mom, a blessed memory, both of them. and my dad of 89 years old. And I appreciate those that were able to attend, and it's always tough because we all have busy schedules when we're out of town. But he would have been warmed by the outpouring of support and the people that came to celebrate his 89 wonderful years on this earth. So I'll miss my dad.
Yes, thank you. And it was a very lovely service. I don't think I've laughed more at a funeral in my life. The stories were wonderful. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of the celebration. We also have, coming up this Saturday, there is a special event that's going on at Raleigh Egypt High School, and so I invite folks to be able to come out and help celebrate. They're going to be doing a community building event where they're inviting folks to come out and help paint the buildings, to support what has been a great turnaround for our schools. And so I encourage any of you who have not. I do want to just acknowledge that I had an opportunity to go to the Jamboree last week. And so good to be able to see so many of our schools come out. It was a great performance by all of our schools. I encourage folks, if you ever want to see the best of what we have to offer, is how community really comes together to celebrate Friday Night Lights. So I do want to recognize all of our schools and some of the great work that they're doing. I'll now turn it over to the superintendent for his report.
Just very briefly, board members, we had a great principals meeting today. Back to school seems to have been as smooth as ever, and we received some very encouraging data over the last week or so regarding the TVOS. And just wanted to take about 45 seconds or so, I think she's teeing it up, and just acknowledge, if we can put it on there. Acknowledge all these schools for the hard work that they put in last year, and for the student outcomes. And so we had 46 level 5 schools. That's up from 30 last year, and this would actually be the 6th or 7th largest school district if you just look at the number of schools that reached the level 5 status. But really want to just point out this list that I was very excited by that we had 24 schools that actually went from level 1 to level 5 in 1 year. So when we talk about what can happen when you have strong school leaders and great teachers in every class and people working very hard, this is how we get to where we're trying to go. And I just want to call out, like I did this morning, there are a couple names on that list that I think just really would just stand out as outstanding. One of them is, if you look at the top, A.B. Hill. We had a young lady, Melody Smith, first year as a principal, went from level 1 to level 5 in 1 year, one of our toughest schools. So I just want to call her out. I'm going to ask these folks to come down and be recognized next week at the regular business meeting. I think also on there, if you guys recall, we put Holmes Road Elementary in the empowerment zone. We did it a little late, and so there were some challenges regarding hiring. So the principal over there, Dr. Stanford, actually had to hire almost all new teachers, coach those teachers up in a very tough situation. And still, I think they had over 20-point gains in science and became level 5. Also, let me see if I can get this. I want to call this list out too. Got a chance to really point out Sharon McNary over at Richland Elementary School. I was so impressed with that, because what happens is when you guys are in schools and you hear people say, well, it's often hard to really get growth from kids who are already high achieving. And so for 2 years in a row over at Richland, she continues to not only get high numbers of proficiency, but also grows kids at a very rapid pace. So just want to point that out. And then I think finally, if it's in there, well, maybe it's not in there. Well, I won't belabor the point. We'll get into it, but we had about 20 schools that had double-digit growth in at least 2 of the 3 AMOs, and I think it's just really remarkable. I don't know whether we have the slide, but we'll put it up next week. But we had 17, including, I know you'll appreciate this, Miss Avant, LaRose Elementary.
Yes, absolutely.
It just shows that when you grind it out year after year and you get the climate and culture right and you get that growth, Mr. Davis over there had, pushing 20-point gains in multiple subjects. So that's how we get to Destination 2025. I'm just so proud of our teachers and school leaders, and wanted to call out their hard work. That's all I have.
Board Member Love.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to let everyone know that Raleigh Egypt is having an event August the 25th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and it's a beautification project at Raleigh Egypt High School. They are looking for volunteers. You can reach out to Ms. Meeks for more information, but I would like to see some of you guys there. August 25th from 9 a.m. to noon. They're going to paint the inside, the outside stairs, clean up outside, remove some of the tree limbs, you know, just make the school a better place on the outside the way that it is in the inside. So if you need any more information, just contact Ms. Meeks, and she will be sure to give you what you need. Thank you.
Not coincidentally, Ms. Love, Raleigh Egypt was also level 5. I'm sure you know that.
Raleigh Egypt, Hawkins Mill, and Grandview Middle School. Thank you.
And I'm going to make sure that Mr. Woods no longer distracts you, because we did mention that beautification in our chair report. Yeah. I did, but I do want to make sure that, thank you for giving more details to that, Ms. Love, but I do want to make sure that we spend some time as board members really sending notes and accolades to our principals within our districts who have worked very hard to have the achievements that superintendent has just spoken about. Sometimes it's good just for them to hear from us that there is a note. We are so taking notice of the hard work that's happening within schools. I'm very excited about having LaRose. You know, the work that we as the Women's Foundation and my day job have been doing to support that school, but so many of our schools, and I commend the work that principals are doing, but I do think that we should think about ways to really acknowledge them publicly for the work that they've done, as well as their staff. Seeing no other lights, we will move on to action items on the agenda. The first item is 7.1, which is the immigrant grant in the amount of $20,951.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's exactly what it is. It's a grant to support 120 English learner parents in the amount of $20,951.
Ms. Jones?
So I missed the meeting, so I lost my switches. What type of support are they going to give to parents? That was my question.
Dr. Ray.
Ms. Grant.
Superintendent Hodgson, Ms. Jones, the parents receive tutoring in reading and all the ESL services that we provide. We really try to assist parents with reading and supporting them at Hickory Ridge Middle and at Treadwell Middle. So it's about tutoring parents and really engaging parents.
Okay, moving on. Seeing no other light, 7.2, the CDC grant promoting adolescent health through school-based HIV prevention and surveillance in the amount of $1.8 million.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's exactly what it is. It's a 5-year grant to support HIV prevention with our students, and it's $360,000 a year for 5 years.
Superintendent, is there I'm sorry, I didn't have my board docs pulled over. There are a list of schools that will be involved in the HIV prevention?
There is, and we anticipated questions, so I think we have some slides if the board wants to see them, or if we can just provide them to the board.
We could just provide them.
Okay. I think it's in in fact, Ms. Powers, I think it's in these packets.
Okay. All right. Thank you. 7.3, preschool development grant.
Yes, this is our grant money from the state to support our pre-K program of work. It's an amount of $10.8 million. I think it'll support 81 school-based sites and 31 community partner sites for the 18-19 school year.
And I'm assuming that list of schools is listed in board docs, list of schools and community partners for the public to see.
Should be, yeah.
Okay. 7.4, and this is our preschool development grant, PDG grants.
Yeah, it's also an additional grant for, to support more pre-K classrooms.
Okay. 7.5, the county commission grant.
Yes, this is, as the board knows, the county commission has for the last 3 years allocated additional dollars to support a set of identified classrooms, and that should be also been at board docs. It's an amount of $1.8 million.
And Mr. Superintendent, I think for the purpose of the listening public, if we could just kind of just state overall that we have the 3 grants that are supporting how many classrooms throughout the county, because we know these are broken down in different pots of money, but it would be helpful for the listening public just to know how many pre-K classrooms we will be funding for this upcoming school year.
Dr. McClendon, can you give some context to these 3 grant awards, please?
Yes. The preschool development grant, we serve approximately about 124 classrooms, and in the VPK, and then the preschool development grant 2, we have another 15 classrooms that are in that grant, along with we provide wraparound services for 32 community partners inside the preschool development grant.
So that's a total of how many pre-K classrooms?
Total with Head Start, Preschool Development Grant, and VPK, we serve 291 classrooms, as well as we have Fund 1 classrooms as well.
Is that an increase from how many classrooms over last year?
Yes, based on funding this year we received from Fund 1, we received an additional 15 classrooms this year, so that's an additional 200 to 300 students that we're serving. So last year we were at about 5,400, and we're at about 5,600, a little over 5,600 this year.
And I don't want it to go unnoticed that our funding partners, the county commission, are really helping us try to get to at least all needs-based pre-K being funded over the next, that's part of our community plan over the next few years. I do want to acknowledge and just thank them for their support in all of this. Ms. Jones?
So I'm not sure if this is in line, but it's involving the Head Start and pre-K. When I attended the meeting last week, I know that there was some discussion about procurement processes and trying to spend the money. And it appears that we might be getting in our own way, and that there's a lot, when money comes back, of course, we need to spend it within a quick period of time. And I think that we may be creating within our procurement process a lot of procedures that will slow that down. So the only thing I ask is that, and I asked Dr. McClendon to, let's look at that with finance to see, because I'm told that going forward you may not have the option to carry over. So it's going to be imperative that we spend down, and we're doing a great job, and we've come a long way from where we used to be, but we're not there. And then as things fall in at the last minute, 30 to 60 days out, we really do need a process to be able to go ahead and expend those funds in that budget year. So it's going to be creative in terms of identifying some things, I think, on the front end that are wish lists that we might not do unless we do have those extra funds. So that's all I want to say.
Well stated.
Okay, moving on, 7.6, University of Memphis Community Partner, amount of $87,716.
Yes, this is a partnership we have with the University of Memphis. They're essentially serving as one of our community partners, and they're operating a preschool class at the University of Memphis.
Seeing no lights, moving on to 7.7, Memorandum of Understanding, Tennessee Department of Education and Childhood Obesity for Health, the amount of $435,000.
Yes, this is a grant for $435,000 to help combat obesity and the negative effects of obesity. I think you have all of the schools that are impacted, and the students who will receive be the beneficiaries of the grant inside your packet.
14, no lights. 7.8, contract Reading Horizons Elevate Software.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this was discussed at the academic committee. Essentially, the board made the bold and correct investment in 15 of our lowest performing middle schools and 15 of our lowest performing high schools to really dig in with some basic reading instruction. We put reading specialists in all those schools, and this program helps them with the basics of phonemic awareness, fluency, decoding, and things of that nature, just to support our efforts around literacy.
Superintendent, how will we get just kind of a update and report about how this particular program that we're making investments in, how will we be able to get an update on it, if we're achieving some of those outcomes and if our students are making the kind of gains that we hope to get?
Dr. Burt?
Yep, so we'll be providing quarterly reports around how the students in the SRA classes are performing. As a district, we receive district reports. Whenever a kid logs on, they take a benchmark assessment. Within each lesson, there's 2 quizzes and a post-assessment. So at any time, we can track the data. So we're working in tangent with performance management to really do a mid-year evaluation report and a summative around the effectiveness of the senior reading advisors throughout the 29 schools.
And all those positions have been hired
Yep.
and placed?
All positions are filled. We actually conducted July 17th and July 19th. We did a 2-day training. So they received the first 2 days training with Reading Horizons. Reading Horizons will be back on the ground to do continuation site visits. And the 17th of September, we'll begin one-on-one training with the SRAs around etymology and word study. And that'll take place throughout the school year.
Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. Superintendent, I just want to commend Dr. Burke on doing a great presentation in Academic Performance Committee, because some of the things for my colleagues who weren't able to make it that he talked about where we'll be able to use this data, I think is really important so we can understand about the investments we made this year. In this year's budget, it's really important for us to compare the two. So I'm looking forward to seeing those results, so then that way we can continue that investment.
And I too, Ms. Bibbs, want to commend Dr. Bird and the academic team just for the thinking around this, because we were able to discover that kids can actually get some credit, how to make this an actual class, and then it's just really a double dose, you know, of reading instruction. I know that they've been committed to it. Makes me think about Alicia Kiner over at BTW. We talked about this and kind of brainstormed and figured out some things that she was doing over there, and I think just to focus on literacy, I think it's reflected in our level 5 composite literacy score, but we know we have a long way to go, and we've heeded the challenge of not just focusing on, you know, our elementary school, but rather getting some treatment in our middle and high schools as well.
Mr. Orgel?
I wanted to, just when I read this the other day, I should have just emailed you and asked, what's the difference between this and the $8 million we spent on EL? If we spent all that money on EL, why do we need to buy this? I said I wasn't going to ask a question, but
Dr. Burke?
So the EL curriculum is really the tier 1 instruction material for meaning base. So for all kids at all grade level, the Reading Horizons is for your kids that's behind grade level in reading. So it's called Reading Horizon Elevate. So if you got a 9th grader that's at a primer level in reading, it helps close the gap, identify what they're struggling with, and it provides prescriptive instruction to get them closer to grade level. So you got one EL tier 1 instruction, and one is for kids that's behind grade level with high level reading deficits.
EL, I thought was K8, right? Was that this year's was K3, I think, and then we expanded it. So this will be for high school students as well?
This is for middle and high school. So we have 14 senior reading advisors in 14 of our lowest performing middle schools, and 15 senior reading advisors at our lowest performing high schools. So those kids go to a special course. They have the courses. They go there. Think of it along the lines of intervention. So they still get tier 1 instruction, but they also get intervention based on their academic gaps as far as where they are in reading.
Okay. So I'm supportive of it because if people can't read, they can't do any other subjects. And I think we've been saying that, Ms. Jones, for 7 years since we've been on the board. You too. And Bill White and I share the same birthday. I know we didn't mention that. I see him over there. And
Happy birthday,
his
Mr.
birthday
White.
his birthday was yesterday too. I thought it was today. No, that's the excuse you use when you miss somebody's birthday.
So, Mr. Orgel, I think, you know, when we had the academic retreat back in the spring, this is obviously a point that board members brought up in great detail about needing to address this issue and that we can't allow another year to go by that we're not addressing reading interventions and trying to close the gap for our middle and high school. We put a lot of energy into early interventions for the elementary, but I think this is the district's attempt to really meet board members' request on closing the reading gap for our middle and high school students. Ms. Love?
Thank you. Will this be the only other component besides the curriculum used in our schools?
In regard to intervention, we still have the intervention that we'd already purchased, so we still have Achieve, we still have iReady, but this one is specialized because all of the senior reading advisors had to already show promise around being able to teach reading. So I lost basically 3 iZone advisors that went to schools, took the position. So these 29 individuals are the cream of the crop across the district, but this is in conjunction to the intervention that's already in place. This is just a more prescribed intervention that's specified around kids that's in upper grades that's deficit in reading.
Okay. And how will that data be separated to see what's actually working?
So this is an actual course, so it's a class.
Okay.
So within the class, they'll get a grade for the class.
Okay, and I know we talked about it in the meeting, the district accountability, making sure that our teachers are trained, making sure they have all of the material, and they're comfortable with all of this before it's actually implemented in the schools.
So we began the training in July. The training in July was to get them familiar with the software. So they had hands-on training with the Elevate software. They also spent a full day on learning the mechanics around Reading Horizon. In September, they'll go deeper around etymology, understanding like how word deconstruction takes place, and they'll receive ongoing site support throughout the school year. So within the school year, it's about 10 touches or 10 PD sessions that each of the 29 SRAs will participate in. We also have a SRA group that meets monthly to collaborate and plan together so they're in alignment across the 14 middle schools and across the 15 high schools.
Okay. And Superintendent, this is for you and Dr. Whitelaw. I really want you guys to have a conversation around with the reading advisors, making sure that they are they're having conversations, the elementary, middle, and high school. Because what we know, we can have a family, if the 9th grader is 2 grade levels behind, that 7th grader may be 2 grade levels behind as well, and the elementary student may be 2 grade levels behind. And I don't think we're fully going to address this literacy issue unless we have our feeder zones working together, addressing the issues that we know are taking place in elementary, middle, and high school in that same community.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think Ms. Love bring up an excellent point. And so in that same vein, as we look at supporting the entire family, Superintendent, Stephanie Love has also advocated for the support of our adult education programs, our partners that are doing that work, because I do think it's an opportunity to make sure that, again, the entire family is learning better literacy skills. But I'm interested in, Superintendent, on why we looked at the high school level only in middle high school and not the elementary, since this product is available in the K-3 space also.
So I think that we have a lot of intervention and opportunities to remediate in elementary. I think the focus really was more so, I think the theory was we do so much for elementary, by the time people get to middle and high school, what's for them. So I think it's really use this to see, and we think it's going to be pretty effective. And then, I mean, once we have the data to show it, perhaps expand it or scale it up. I do think some of the challenges are going to be, I think as Dr. Bird said, I mean, I think we pretty much got the cream of the crop in terms of those 29, but you would probably need about 160. So just making sure people are trained and fully know how to teach kids how to read is going to be something I think that as we move forward this year, and trying to identify folks who, if this is successful, can be kind of the next SRAs to work across the district.
And how, final question on that is, what's the strategy around measuring success? What kind of outcomes are we hoping to gain?
So each of the schools have baseline data where their incoming grade. So middle school, the target grade is 6th graders because we know that those kids will be with them for 3 years. High school is 9th graders, so they look at the cohort. Within that given cohort, they have a targeted goal of a 10% AMO goal within that particular grade, and then that will factor into the overall composite of the school. So it's 10% AMO, then the composite has to be a level 3, 4, or 5, but also looking at the cohort, the kid, to see how do they move tiers within that particular grade. And all of the kids have been identified, so we'll be able to extract every kid at each school site because they're registered in a particular class.
Okay, so to be clear that I'm hearing you correctly, so we won't just look at this school had this growth and we tie it back to this tool. We'll actually be able to look at Johnny specifically, and regardless of what school he or she goes to, we'll see if those interventions impacted the growth of that particular child.
Yep.
Correct, because that was the major premise around selecting Reading Horizons. One, because we invested in a role, but the role come with the kid can take the class, and we can track performance for each individual because they're in a course that we can pull that information from.
Okay, thank you.
And I do just want to point out that, Superintendent, although we have 29 that we have funded in this year's budget, I'm hopeful that the outcomes that we hope to achieve, and we're talking about double-digit gains. Ms. Bibbs was one who pointed out that we probably needed 160 for every, we had needed 180, one for every school, that we should be having this kind of level of intervention. So I would be, happy to see the results of where we are mid-year and then where we are next year, because we do need to make some decisions. If this is, I'm not saying it's our silver bullet, but if this is getting us closer to closing the reading gap, that we need to think about that in our budget process for next year. Ms. Love?
One more question. Since this is a course, what was eliminated from the schedule? And I'm asking that because I know that we're going to have to bring science, because our students will be graded on science. So how does that schedule look?
Didn't, because I remember from some of the earlier conversations around eliminating electives, we didn't eliminate any supports, but with a middle and high school schedule, that can also be built in as an intervention. So this is a course, for example, Grandview, some of the schools elected to do it as a semester, some elected to do it as 180 days, because some schools had more tier 2 students than tier 3 students. So with that tier 2, they wanted their kids to participate for a semester and have the opportunity to test out. We left that up to the school, because if you got tier 2, that means you're trending more so toward the tier 1 level. Some schools, tier 3, those kids are 180 days in the course, but it's built in as an intervention. So none of the core, none of the electives are effective.
Okay. And so how is this going to impact the science?
Science is still a course. It's still one of the core courses that's taken. So none of your core courses are interrupted. You just have an additional period as an intervention.
Okay, so what about our electives? Art, music, PE, band, our students are still going to have all of that?
Those are still in place as well. It's just an additional period intervention elective.
Okay, so with the science classes and with this intervention, was that already in there? I know some schools have, because I know Grandview already had it. They already had an intervention period. So I'm not questioning that one. But do all schools already have an intervention period added in?
Yep, so this intervention period is more so coded in the system, because a lot of times intervention was coming in the form of like pushing in or pushing out, whereas opposed this intervention is a specialized course where you're actually getting a course grade around the intervention.
Okay, so it's computer-based or an actual teacher?
It's both. So
okay.
they actually have the curriculum. So with the curriculum, the software aligns with the curriculum. So the focus is creating like a workstation model within inside the classroom. Teachers working with a small group of 5 to 7 kids, 5 to 7 kids working independently, the other 5 to 7's on the computer. What's taking place in the teacher's small group is also being reinforced on the computer because of the actual same lesson. When you log on to a lesson, each lesson has a a pre-assessment. It tells you where you are. Before you complete that lesson, you have 2 quizzes, then a post-assessment. So I really have 4 data points for each lesson.
Okay, and then final question, will you look at the data per report card period, or how are you gonna look at the data to see if it's working, if you need to tweak something, or?
Yep. So by having district access, I'll be looking at it. I have a team of 3 that's really designated to this project full time. So we'll be looking at it weekly. So we don't have to wait till reporting cards, because by the 20th day window, which is next Friday, all kids are expected to be uploaded. We gave schools a little leeway with the registration. So beginning September 4th, the Tuesday after Labor Day, it's the expectation that all kids in Elevate, and they're beginning the program as planned.
Seeing no further lights, moving on to 7.9, Power School Meeting Daily Attendance Sync.
Yes, so this is actually a program fix. I'm sure the board heard a lot last year around that we had some attendance issues or some errors calculating some of the attendance with Power School. So we've been working with Power School to have a fix for it. We actually fixed it last year toward the end of the year, and this is just in addition to the regular contract, the $25,000. And I will say that with the challenges that we've had last year with Power School, we're not hearing any concerns. I think we worked really hard over the summer to get those issues resolved, and we're not hearing a bunch of the problems with Power School that we had last year.
Ms. Love?
This doesn't have anything to do directly with Power School, but it does have something to do with attendance. I know that I've been able to reach out to Dr. Ray to help parents who are trying to get their children in school. But I think, Superintendent, we need to make sure that we are letting our principals know that we want our children in school. So if a parent doesn't have a address, or if they don't have the documentation, let's put the child in school, and then we work on getting all that information later. Because I do know that letters were sent home to parents with the new attendance law from the DA, and we just want to make sure our children, our top goal is to make sure our children are in school every day.
So I think, Ms. Love, and I would agree with that. I think if you've got some specific instances that you're aware of, you let me know offline. We can.
Dr. Ray takes care of it
Okay.
all.
Okay. All right.
I guess you heard that.
Enough said. Thank you, Dr. Ray.
So I do want to clarify, Superintendent, is there some additional language for 7.9 that we need to make sure is read in?
No, we just wanted to, I think that was really more from the accounting thing, and Lynn and Mr. Patton wanted to make sure that it's.
This language will appear next week on the business session.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's added information that will show up.
Exactly.
And it's on board docs now.
Okay. Board members, make sure that you are refreshing so that the language is clear about this particular item. Ms. Bibbs?
Okay, I'm just happy to see this. I know I've had this conversation around Power School, and hopefully this will solve the issue. You know, I have a personal situation that, according to Power School, my son was never at school, considering the fact, though, he spent his mornings at the radio station as a class, so that always concerned me. So I'm happy to see that this will fix that.
Ms. Jones?
So I'm trying to figure out logistically how is this going to work. Are they going to scan? They're still going to have to manually enter something, and who's going to enter it, and or is there going to be some automatic where they scan?
So I'm going to try to say this. I'm going to get, I guess, Brad and John to help me. So essentially what the old program did was, I think if you were absent from homeroom, then it coded you absent the whole day. And so now I think that they're able to, once, if say you get there late, you get their second period or whatever, the program itself will give you credit for being there.
I'm saying, so if you're late or even just initially if you're not late, someone is going to manually enter you, or you going to be scanned in or some type of?
No, so teachers are still going to take attendance in each period, but the way that Power School is set up is that a bridge period was sort of designated as the period, and if a kid was absent from that period, they would be counted absent the whole day. What this customization will do is if a kid is present for 4 out of the 7 periods during the day, they'll be automatically counted as present. If they're absent for 4 of the 7 periods of the day, then they'll be counted as absent. So that's the customization here.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent, just for my understanding, it says that this amount is for $25,725. Why is it before this body?
Because my auditor and my CFO said that, you know, we have a contract for, I don't know, $700,000, however much it is. And so this is basically a change order.
Yeah.
So since the initial amount was over $100,000 and it adds on to that amount, we wanted to bring it.
Now that makes this board very happy. It's what I was expecting, but obviously knowing that when this body approved contracts, that any modification or any addition where there's new dollars being spent, that is brought back before this body is a good sign of a good auditor and great CFO and good superintendent. So thank you guys, appreciate that.
Moving on to, I'm sorry. No, I think Ms. Bibbs was the first person I recognized. You didn't have anything additional? Okay. Moving on to 7.10, procurement, cafeteria supply items for the 2018-19 school year.
That's correct, Madam Chair. Cafeteria supply items in the amount of $1.5 million for the school year.
Okay, seeing no lights. 7.11, cafeteria equipment steamers.
That's correct. This is for the purchase of 9 gas steamers and 2 electric steamers in the amount of $152,000.
Seeing no lights, moving on to 7.10, procurement food service management system.
Yes, this is the information management system that helps track inventory, and we're moving to this ahead of our Oracle implementation. I think we were using a temporary solution for the last couple of years. Are you going to add anything to that, Ms. Fela?
Just that OneSource is the system that we use now, but it required a lot of manual intervention to fix some of our challenges in managing inventory. This system will replace that manual process, and also it'll integrate with Oracle and improve our ability to manage inventory and also menu planning and ordering at the school level.
So, Superintendent, our new food services management system will work with Oracle. Why are we having to spend this amount of money?
This is Oracle does not have this module, and we currently use a system called OneSource, which really never satisfied the needs of inventory management. As a result, we had a lot of compliance issues, and this tool replaces the manual improvements we put in place to pass all of our compliance requirements over the past year, and it also will integrate with Oracle so we can exchange data in terms of interfaces.
Seems like there are a lot of particular modules we've had to include as a part of this overall system with Oracle that I don't think we anticipated when we made the initial purchase.
This particular system, even at the specification development level, it's such a specialized software that they don't have a module that provides this level of specificity for inventory management. So this was not included in the scope of the original contract.
Mr. Woods?
Madam Chair, my question is in the same vein. Thought about it, Superintendent, when we were talking about Power School, and now on this particular item, do we have, and I guess this may be a question for your CIO, do we have in-house programmers, coders, that when these particular customization questions come about, or we have a fix that's needed through technology, that we look in-house for that skill set prior to calling on the vendor? Because this isn't going to go away There are people that code in Power School when these customization issues come about that we use in-house talent. Bottom line is, should we be looking for talent versus bringing a contract before this body each year?
No, we don't have the resources in-house to do it, and I'm not sure we could afford it either, given what it costs to just have an architect and somebody to be familiar enough to dip into selected programs and make it work. It's a arduous task, and I don't think it's something the board, I don't think we even want to do it, to be honest with you. It's important for us that we get as much information as we can when we start a purchase, and I think we did that on when we bought the new ERP system, but because there are so many unique things that we do in schools that other businesses don't have to deal with, that is not a priority in a program like Oracle. I think you would have found the same thing if we had went with Workday or SAP or any other large ERP provider. They just don't do it.
Let me ask a follow-up question, Superintendent. Do we have any coders working for the district?
We have some application specialists that can go in and fix things related to like our major system like Power School, but just everyday coding work, no, we don't.
Yeah. So Superintendent, I just would encourage us to really be more innovative and strategic. An enterprise organization of this magnitude, I challenge that answer. That's not a talent that we need. We can't be out telling our kids that computer science is the largest profession, with the most open jobs. You ask FedEx, you ask any other large organization, large enterprise, they want to do that customization in-house, and I think it should be talent that we're looking for.
If I could just add that whenever we start talking customization and you rely on some in-house people to do it, if that talent leaves, that information leaves, and that always presents a challenge in school districts, that if we customize too much, you get stuck with it if somebody leaves.
Superintendent, I don't want to debate that today, but that's why you leave blueprints of that issue. You lose talent all the time. Hopefully they're leaving a footprint behind so someone else can pick that up and carry the mantle.
So the board knows, just along those lines, I think a couple things. I think that, it seems like a long time ago, but we still are, wrestling with putting things together from the merge. I don't like to rely on that, but I mean, quite frankly, the system that, we're using a one source system, is horse and buggy. So I think that what we need to do is get to where we need to be, and then think through all those issues. I'd agree, and I think we're doing a market salary analysis to figure out, like, when you compare, particularly like people in our IT field, like what we pay, FedEx and other corporations, is pennies on the dollar. So we're trying to figure out like what that needs to look like, and then long term, how do you not be so vendor reliant on different technology solutions. So I acknowledge that.
Ms. Love?
It says that the term of agreement is for 5 years. What can you give me the rationale behind that, or is that something they suggested, or was it something that the administration suggested?
I'm gonna defer. Teresa, can you talk to that, or procurement talk to that? I think it's my opinion, and I'll let the experts talk about it, but when you're buying a technology like this, that's going to be one of our core systems for how we manage not only the menu planning, but the ordering and the inventory management. It's not something that you can change out in a short period of time. It's going to integrate with our prime, data system, which is Oracle. So these types of agreements are typically longer scale agreements, and that becomes an embedded system that we use. Anyone want to add to that? That's okay? Okay.
Well, Superintendent, I think to Mr. Woods' point, Ms. Love's question is really valid, that as systems change, it seems like a 5-year agreement with something that we know can be innovated and changed within a 18-month period. Seems like a lengthy contract, and maybe it's because this particular system is so specific, but I think we should be thinking about, as Mr. Woods pointed out, an enterprise of this size. We have hugely talented kids within our district, some that are at our T-STEM school that if we couldn't be providing opportunities for them to provide those kind of resources to the district, or training them to be coders for an enterprise such as Shelby County Schools, so that they're not all thinking about FedEx or St. Jude. I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves and our kids. Moving on to 7.13, which is Armed Guard Security Services for the 2018-2019 school year.
Yes, this is exactly for that, to provide armed guard security services for our CNC operation for the year.
Mr. Orgel?
So, I had a question. We've got a nice size security force, and I also looked at the bids on this. So, if I was going to buy like a TV, I'd go look at the prices, go to Best Buy, look online, and then for the same thing, if it was a 50-inch TV, if 5 of them were $800 and one of them was $250, I would worry about that. So we're putting people with guns to protect people, and we took the low bid. And so we've got some, Chief Darling, Ms. Jack, we've got some wonderful, and I know a lot of them, they're sitting in this room protecting all of us, Mr. Palmer over there, and has been with us for 7 years at least while we've been here. And I don't believe, because it's public record, that he's paid $11.99 an hour. And I actually have some guards at places I have, and I wouldn't pay, I've been through this same exercise at $11.99 an hour. So all these companies that are doing security work are staffing companies. It's like if you had to unload trucks and you would hire people. So, and remember, and it's been contentious, Ms. Jones, Ms. Bibbs, on our cleaning people. And we elected to spend about $3 million more to try to elevate the pay of our cleaning people, because we might be paying 11, but they're only getting $7.75. So for $11.99, they're at least making a margin on this. We're going to be paying about, they're going to get about $8 or $9 with a gun. So the turnover one's going to be extremely heavy, which it is in our cleaning staff, whatever company has our cleaning staff, and you can't just pay somebody that. And so I think we've got a good staff already. I want to understand a little more. We don't have to have this discussion tonight, but I'd like to look at it a little deeper. And if we need to hire more internal security where we have some controls and that Chief Darling feels good about handing them a weapon, then that's good. But we have enough problems in this community with guns. And it really makes me nervous that we take the low bid, which will be a high turnover area, on something. And I think we do something very well. We have no incidents. We have very few incidents in our schools. We've never had one in 7 years with our security staff that I recall, and they're highly trained. A lot of them are former military, former law enforcement. And I just think before we do this, I want to know why we're worried about, what we're worried about getting stolen and what's going to happen, what we're doing now. But I just be a little careful about that. It's a lot of money too. We could hire 10 officers for that, or let's say 8 officers for that.
So I think those are all great questions, Mr. Orgel, many of which I asked when this was brought. I guess a couple of things. I think this is the company I think that we use now and have used for a while, and they're armed guards with or without incident. So I think that's where the level of confidence, because they have been around for a while. Is that the
Could someone pass my microphone so Chief could answer, please?
That's correct, Superintendent.
And then I think too, we talked about maybe even using some of the existing force to maybe help out, but they're all in schools. So I guess at the end of the day, because we've used this company for a while and hadn't had any incidents, that's why we have a comfort level. But it's certainly if the board wants to talk about, adding more full-time positions, to do it, we certainly don't mind discussing that.
If that's the other microphone. It was yesterday. I think I mean, we could beat it to death tonight, but I think come back with some more answers next week. The other bids were $16, $17, $18, $19, $20 an hour, and that's really more in line with what I see people paying. And just take 20% off that. That's what the guard's getting paid. So you've got to wonder about. We need quality people. If we're worried, I read in there it was to protect our employees, and we need quality people. I feel good when Officer Palmer's standing over there.
Me too.
Yeah, and so he left. Did he leave? Oh, good. Okay, but I'm saying I think you're going to get a lot of turnover. That man's been 7 years right here, and familiar face. You got to be careful with when you're doing security.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with that question. Chief Darling, you indicated that we're currently using them. Could you elaborate on how many we have? Where are they currently being staffed?
Okay, this particular company is staffed through CNC. We just assist in some of the evaluations of the company,
okay.
But we've had no incidents with them as
Do you know the volume?
being there.
How many?
So let me give you some context, okay? A couple years ago, the CNC had an audit write-up because the service guard folks that we were using weren't the lowest bid. So we're required to use cost as the determining factor according to the Code of Federal Regulations. So what we had to do was, when this bid came up, we had to put it out, and we were required to take the lowest bid if we intend to use nutrition services fund. So happy to have other conversations about direct officers, but we had to approach it this way because of the CNC requirements. And so this is a new vendor to us in terms of what we've been using. And they're also for the 3 temporary buildings for the CNC that
Madam
we've never
Chair,
used.
my question was, if the Chief Darling indicated this was a vendor we've been using, and I asked how many. I appreciate the commentary regarding how we got there, but if he stated we've been using them, how long have we been using them, and where are they currently?
I believe that Chief was saying that it's not a vendor that we've used, but he
Oh,
helped
that's what he
us
said?
evaluate the vendors. So this is not the incumbent. It is a new
No,
vendor.
it's not the incumbent.
Right, it
So-
is not the incumbent.
So let me apologize for that. I
because
thought that
I
we were
heard
all
different.
using it. Yeah.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Yeah, I thought they were the people that.
So you thought you too heard that they were currently in-house and they're not. Okay, so it's a new vendor.
Yes, it
and
is.
We're currently for $11.99. So
Right.
I think you kind of answered the question.
Mhm.
I agree with you. Yes, I've managed grants for many years, and you take for federal dollars, you use the lowest bid.
Mhm.
But again, as I indicated previously, this is an enterprise.
Yeah.
You don't have to use You don't have to use grant dollars to protect your staff,
Mhm.
right? I'm sure there'll be another use. As I look at today's agenda, there are other needs in the Central Nutrition Office that you'll find somewhere to spend that money. Perhaps security is not the space that these dollars are going to be spending. But there are other ways that we could have gotten to a solution based on that audit finding than just finding the cheapest vendor. Because what happens next year, based on what you just stated, what happens next year when someone says we'll charge 8,
Mhm.
6?
Mhm.
That's against the law. But you get my point.
I absolutely get your
Thank
point. Happy to come back with other scenarios. I think the contract can go, and our incumbent can go month to month if the board chooses to go in that direction. We can come back with other scenarios. If you'd rather have direct officers, we're happy to, I can work with Chief Darling to give that, cost analysis at the will of the board.
I do have a question after other board members have had a chance to ask. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree with most of the comments, especially Board Member Orgel. I often ask about these we just take the lowest bidder and then we struggle. And so I understand the money, the source of the funding requires certain things, but the source of the funding does not dictate how we put it out there and the specs. That's how you determine the quality product. And I think that is the source of what I've been talking about all along. How you put it out there. Mr. Superintendent, I think how you get to Lowe's. There's more than one way to get there. And so I think that's what we need to focus on, the level of expertise that we're using to really attract an offer that maybe is not the lowest, but we'll still have to take the lowest if we use those funds. but what they provide and what we're going to require, the level of experience, those are the type of things that you can build in to ensure that you get a quality, type of quality that I think that we're looking for. Maybe we have it, but I don't know. And it does bother me when we always take the lowest bid. We still can take the lowest bid, but we need to make sure what we ask is something quality.
Ms. Love?
So I do agree with the other things that my board members have said, but I really think that we need to be consistent with our message, Superintendent. We sat here not long ago and praised you for moving the minimum wage of some of our employees to $15 an hour. And now we're being asked to vote on a contract where these employees may make $8 or $9 an hour. And I think that, well, from what I know, that most of these security guards are males. And there is no way that a male could provide for well, male or female, provide for their family making $8 or $9 an hour in the city of Memphis. And like Chief Palin stated, that because this was grant dollars, and I know you have to go with the lower bid, but I think we need to go back and look. Is there something else that we can do? Is there another way that we can use this money and try to provide our guards who will be armed with a little more money? Because I don't see how the people who are already making $8 and $9 an hour, I don't see how they're making it. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I can't support this because what we stated, we always talk about poverty. We always talk about our families living in poverty. And with this, because it is a grant, and I know, like I said, I know you have to go to the lowest bid, but I think we need to reevaluate this.
Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So, Superintendent, I just want to say that I agree with everything my colleagues are saying. I think this is an opportunity for us to learn and grow through how we look at things. I think Ms. Jones has been saying about how we do RFPs and RFQs, just around making sure we get the right thing. And we know certain dollars can be spent certain ways, but this is an opportunity for us to think about this differently. I'm really saying it to Chief Phelan in her office, and then in bringing in Chief Darling around what that looks like when we're talking about securing anything. I think maybe there needs to be a real plan comprehensively about the whole district around that, so we don't have some one-offs. The other thing that I think is important to Mr. Wood's point around how we got that change in the contract, and it came back to us when he asked us, oh, well, why are we talking about it? I think as people are listening to us, we're kind of saying the exact same things, but maybe as you're writing these questions down, that probably will be the best way to move forward with some of these things. Thank you.
Superintendent, I think board members have been pretty clear, and maybe we need to go back, and I would like to hear maybe from Chief Darling in an email what his recommendation is. I don't know that, it doesn't sound like this would be an expansion of, we have, our great resource officers who provide quality work to us, and as we know, we look and trust the quality of work that they're providing. And just the example of me being at the Jamboree last week, I know those resource officers by name, and they are doing a gargantuan job of managing and supporting and making sure that even our events that have thousands of people have no incident and are safe. And if the solution is that we need to expand the number of resource officers that are trained under Chief Darling, because we know that the folks that are trained under his department give us what we need, maybe that's a way for us to come back to this. Mr. Cornell?
See, I'm looking at the briefing we got. It says 2017 evacuation of the original nutrition center resulted in employees being reassigned to various locations. My question is, what are the locations where these people would be assigned now?
This is the Messick facility, North Side, and the warehouse on Jackson Avenue. So these security guards are required for those facilities because when we had the roof collapse at the Jackson Avenue Nutrition Center, we had to move into these respective buildings. So these are temporary positions because, you know, hopefully we'll migrate to a centralized location at some point.
I tell you, I understand why this was done, and I don't think the company, I think it's called Diligence. I don't see anything wrong with the company, but, so I don't want to leave that impression. But if I got some kids from Orange Mound in District 9, skateboarding, riding their bikes at night over at the Messick area, the parking lot, and some guy making $10 an hour, working 2 jobs with a gun, is who confronts them. That just, I don't like that. I just don't like that. I think, you know, I'm glad we've not had an incident, but I agree with Board Member Orgel. You know, student lives matter. So I understand what you're doing, but maybe we ought to go from diligence to due diligence. And so I agree, we've got to get something, we need to do something different.
So I'm just to make sure I'm clear. I mean, that's why we have boards, and I appreciate you guys' feedback because ultimately all these expenditures are approved by the board. So it sounds to me like what we need to do, or what the board would like for us to do, is consider other funding streams, because I think, as Beth pointed out, if it's going to be with the federal dollars, then it has to be lowest bid. But obviously we can use general fund dollars if we decide to do that, but then there'll be trade-offs. So I guess what we'll do is we will circle back if we can, if the board will give us a couple months to figure it out. You know, we'll bring back some different options, if that's the board's will.
Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Superintendent. My follow-up comment there, and I think Chief Phelan is aware of this as well, but if you hire staff, federal government, they don't care about that. So if you want to avoid any of this, just add to Chief Darling's compliment and have them work in these locations, and you can still pay for it with your federal dollars.
Ms. Jones.
And then, Mr. Superintendent, the trade-off that those dollars can go to enhance the quality of the offerings in terms of food items. I still continue to have these conversations in the grocery store and and just general about the food. Mm-hmm. And I know that we said we were going to do some things to enhance it. I don't really know what happened with that, other than I continue to get complaints about the quality of food. So but not across the board. I've got some positive.
Some of the things that have been happening, Board Member Jones, I know we had some different students to do some surveys and taste tests and figure out the kind of food that they like and they don't like, but I will be the first one to admit we still have some work to do on our food.
I am so happy to volunteer my daughter to be one of those taste testers, because that is not the consensus of folks in my house about the food getting better. Just to be really, you know, transparent, that is not what's happening and not the feedback we're getting. So I do think that there are some enhancements that could happen. Mr. Cornell.
I just want to add, when I was a state legislator, I was fought against private prisons, and I think as an idea, as a philosophy, I don't like the idea of giving the police power of the state to any corporation or business. We're a government agency. We're giving the police power to enforce things to people outside of our own agency, outside of our own training, and I just think that can be dangerous. And I think so maybe some of our graduates someday could be hired to do these jobs.
It's all great feedback. We'll pull it. We'll come back with a plan in 60 days.
And I really would like to hear Chief Darling's best thinking about what he thinks about if that's expansion of his current force, understanding that these are under 2 different departments, but I would like to rely on his expertise and to give us the right direction.
We'll do it. Perhaps we can even make this maybe on a committee meeting and talk about it in depth.
Ms. Love has already made that request.
Excellent.
7.14, MATA.
This is for our kids who are in alternative schools to have transportation to their alternative schools.
Ms. Love.
I do, Superintendent, want to make sure that whatever department is over this has a conversation with MATA. I know that they have proposed, I believe, 11 bus changes, some of them elimination. So I did talk to somebody from community engagement about this as well, but just having a conversation so we can know if it will impact some of our children.
Dr. Ray has been having regular conversations with MEPA.
Yes.
Could you speak to that?
Ms. Phelan and I have both been working with MATA to ensure that our kids are safe and that they have the correct bus stops for our students.
Someone has requested that you stop trying to sound like Barry White.
Sure, Ms. Ava, I would not sound like Ms. Barry White.
See, I thought I had a friend in the superintendent. Just bust me out. Just bust me out. Mr. Cornell, did you have a comment on this one?
Yeah, I got a question. Some time ago, there was a discussion, I believe, superintendent met with Mr. Burgess or Mr. Flynn or someone about when we combine schools and the school areas get so large that parents who have no transportation need to ride the bus to school and back, that there might be a special card for some of them. Did that ever pan out?
I think when we brought that up, I don't think the school was closed. This year we closed or merged Jeter and Manor Lake, and they literally are right around the corner from each other. So I think we looked at that and didn't think that we needed it to do that for that closure.
Superintendent, this is the question that Mr. Woods usually asks, but see, he's trying to keep us moving. Do we know the number of bus passes that were used last year so that we know that we are at least on point with the quantity that's needed for this upcoming school year?
So we can get that information, how many bus passes used. However, alternative schools is a rolling enrollment. So students, we get new students every day. So I can give you that information.
And these are only alternative students that are using these bus passes that
Yes,
are being
ma'am.
made available? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Woods, I knew you couldn't resist.
So, because I have brought this issue up often about the utilization of our public transportation system, and if we could get more kids. When we look at work experience, superintendent, are there kids who would go to work if they had transportation? Are there kids that would choose our high quality seats if they had transportation to get to some of our high performing schools? I don't know that answer, but it would be great if we could somehow start to poll, parents, students, if they're interested. And through our partnership with MATA, for years we've sat on this board and we've seen a good partnership with our alternative schools. But I know there's ongoing conversation, superintendent, about expanding that partnership. So I really don't have a question, but it's good to know that you guys are looking beyond just alternative school partnerships.
Yes.
And I think to Ms. Love's point, when we're talking to MATA, because the city and county are doing this comprehensive planning project called Memphis 3.0, they're supposed to be actually expanding the bus routes so that they're more conducive to how traffic flows for both schools and work. So I just want to make sure that we're tapping into that resource for also how they're going to be supporting us.
Yes.
One more question.
Well, it's just a statement. I think that along the lines of helping the students, again, I want to point out that there needs to be a discussion of making sure that the parents and family members can also get on the bus, and in addition to the students, if they have to get to school. Did you hear what I said? What I'm saying is we need to arrange for students to get to school, but they may be getting to school on a bus because they don't have a car.
Right.
So also, how can we get parents involved in the schools if they can't get to school? So I think we need to consider that when a student gets the pass, the family can get the pass.
I think that's a excellent point that I'm surprised Ms. Love has not come up with before, to provide some of those those bus passes for families, because that is a concern that students have had, and I think even in Ms. Bibb's district with Magnolia and Alsea, with the school closure of Alsea, to bring, those students will be coming to the new Alsea school. if that is a resource that would be beneficial for parents, that we could provide bus passes to those parents as well.
Yes, ma'am. We'll put together a team with Steve Weary, probably Dr. Lori Phillips, and Ms. Phelan, and with MATA to see what recommendations we can come up with to try to do just that.
And it may not the parents will utilize it, but I think it's great to have it as an option for parents to utilize. Ms. Love, last question.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I actually did state that when we decided to send the students from North Haven to Tresvant, because I believe there's only 2 bus routes in the North Haven community, so I don't sleep.
Moving on to 7.15. This is paintwork for school cafeterias for the 2018-19 school year.
Yes, this is to do a number of paint jobs in the cafeteria and the kitchen areas in different school cafeterias.
Is that list, is the list of schools that will be painted?
Ms. Phelan, we have the list. Is it board docs?
It's in board docs.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. 7.16, rental of oh, this was, okay, I'm sorry, this was for the painting. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Cornell. You're acknowledged.
I was a Sherwood Archer, and some of the people who went to school with me have gone back to actually work at Sherwood Middle, and they said that there's one area where the painting hasn't been finished. I don't know if that's the cafeteria or not, but painting got started at Sherwood Middle, but there's one area that's unfinished. These are from some of the alumni that told me.
Okay, we'll follow up.
Okay, thanks.
Sherwood Middle, thank you.
7.16, rental of chillers at Northside High and Grays Creek Warehouse.
This is for, I think, 6 months rental of these temporary chillers for CNC operation that's at Northside and Grace Creek.
Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So, Superintendent, I know that we just said yes to Bear, but I think this is an opportunity for us to see a plan around what's the strategy for moving from going from Jackson and as well as using chillers at these other locations, so that we won't have to continue to pay this amount of money for this service. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing the next strategy.
Absolutely. This is part of the $3.6 million annual that we spend because of the disparate CNC organization. Mm-hmm.
And I do think, Superintendent, just with Mr. Johnson and Ms. Phelan, it would be helpful for us to see what kind of costs we're going to be allocating to this move, and that we are thinking more very strategically about how either those properties are going to be sold in order to help us get to the place we're needing to be. But to Ms. Bibbs' point, it'd be prudent for you all to bring us a plan sooner rather than later.
So we're intending to bring to the floor, if we can get the proposal done on time with the vendor, in terms of providing that plan to y'all. So you'll see something I'm hoping to add on the floor at the business board meeting next week to vote on.
Mr. Orgel?
I'd be really in favor of that, because what Ms. Bibbs said, I mean, we're now looking at cost avoidance.
Right.
Bless you. I mean, this plus the security, it's a lot of money.
And I think, Mr. Orgel, it'd be good for you to move your committee forward to pushing them to get this plan before us.
We're intending to bring it next week. Thank you for asking.
Have a little birthday present for him.
All right, 7.17, duplicating paper.
Ms. Phelan.
So this is for warehouse replenishment, and I think the last time we brought this to the board, we had some questions around if we had the ability to manage the inventory to know when we need to order. And so we hit a point where we have probably 5 to 6 months of reserve in the warehouse, and that's when we place the final order for the year for paper. And the order is split into weekly deliveries, and that's when we induct that paper into the process. So we buy it that way so we can save money, and then we only order it when we know we only have 5 months left to make sure that we don't have any hiccups in delivering the paper to the schools.
Seeing no lights. Moving on to 7.18, contract amendment, Tresvant High School HVAC. Creamer.
A change order with the HVAC replacement at Tresman. I think that during the course of the work, there were some issues that were discovered, and it's just bringing back for a change order for the board's approval.
Moving on to 7.19, change order Shady Grove Elementary.
Same thing in the amount of $12,509, change order for Shady Grove.
Seeing no lights, moving on to 7.20, modular wall partition installation at Sheffield Elementary School.
That's exactly what it's for. There's apparently some noise issues. So can you elaborate on that, Beth?
Sure. So at the request of academics, they want to transform a very open area and bring in partitions to create separate rooms. I think there's a first, second, and third grade area. Based on the drawings, it looks like we're creating about 15 or 16 different rooms to provide a little bit more of a quiet learning environment.
7.10, East High School floor tile removal project.
Yes, this is to remove some tile and some asbestos abatement, and it's just part of the beautification and some repairs to the main building inside of East as we think about transitioning all the students over to the main building.
Signal lights, 7.22, East High School painting project.
Beth?
Yeah, so this is a painting project that includes the second and third floor restrooms and classrooms, door jambs, window trims, library, offices, and the corridors. So a pretty comprehensive painting program as part of the renovation.
Superintendent, I just want to make sure, as we see East High School on this particular agenda more than one time, we have about $90 million obviously in capital projects, and so I just want to make sure that we're going through the necessary steps that all those schools who've been waiting on this list for quite a while are getting into the rotation. It is no shade against East, but I think as we're thinking about all of those schools, I want to make sure that each month we're seeing a steady rotation of those capital projects that we've now gotten approval for are moving through the rotation.
This particular project is probably about a year old, and we're finally getting to it. So I hear you, Board Chair, and we'll bring you status on a regular basis.
Moving on to 7.23, purchase of property insurance and student athletic insurance.
Thank you. This is board members for our disaster insurance on all of our properties, and then also for our student athletic insurance, which we provide to all of our student athletes.
Superintendent, are students required to pay any portion of this student of the insurance?
Dr. Rachel Chief,
I'm just asking because I, recently made a purchase, and so when I see this as an item, I have questions about the district's responsibility and then what we're asking parents to do. I'm making sure I'm not the only one.
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Are students required to pay a portion of this the student athletic insurance? Now, I'm happy for you all to just make sure that we have a
Yeah, we
answer.
can get, we try not to have students, because a lot of our student athletes can't, so we try to make sure through the risk management piece that we take care of this as often as we can.
What typically happens, Ms. Adams, we'll get you a fully buttoned up answer by next week, but I think that we can't, for our kids who can't afford, and we don't require anybody if they can't afford, but I think we do ask parents to pay. I know I pay insurance as well, but we'll get the full, you're not alone, we'll get the full how it's broken down, and
And I'm asking, I scholarshiped a student who didn't have the money. So my question is parents know that this is available? Not for my own personal, but I provided a scholarship for a student who didn't have the $50 for the insurance. And so I just want to make sure that that particular option is provided to parents to know if they are not able to afford it, that it wouldn't prohibit their students from being able to participate in athletic opportunities. Ms. Irvin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the coverage, my understanding of this coverage is that it provides protection, but it provides secondary coverage to any primary coverage that the student already has. So if the student doesn't have insurance, then this one would kick in, to your point.
Ms. Bibbs.
Thank you, Chair. So, Superintendent, I think to Chair Avant's point around whatever we get back, can we figure out how it's determined, how they use those scholarship, with just those dollars, waiver dollars, because in general, when you go into the school year, they send you the paper, they say, hey, this is what you owe in order to play. And then to me, I think there needs to be clear rules around how those decisions are made, just so that we're all clear on when it happens. Because having just paid it, I understand that it's just a piece of paper. If they're gonna play, you pay it and you move on. But
we'll make sure that it's all clear.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to 7.24, on-site medical services.
Yes, thank you. This is for our employee health clinics. Do want to mention, I think that we're reimbursed some portion. I think the Methodist provides the clinic services, and then we're reimbursed a portion through somebody. Is that correct, Ms. Ryan? Yeah, through Cigna. We're reimbursed as $600,000 a year of that, but we just want to bring the total amount.
Mr. Cornell.
I'm looking at the let's see, Chief of Staff summary, and it says here pre-K physicals. What is that? It's in the list of things that are done. Pre-K physicals.
Mr. Cornell, can you state your question?
Yeah, in the summary, it says they do pre-K physicals. Could somebody tell me about that?
It looks like, Mr. Colonel, I think that Dr. McClendon, who would be over there, may have stepped out. If we can, Miss Marley. Okay.
Good evening. Pre-K physicals is related to dependents only. Shelby County School dependent, employee dependents.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering. Now, sometime I may bring up again, but during the pre-K Head Start meetings I've gone to, we've discussed making sure that the kids, when screened, are screened for lead. And they were going to add, even though it wouldn't be required by the state, they were going to add a piece of paper to make sure the kids that are coming in pre-K and Head Start are given a piece of paper to indicate that you can get a free lead screening, I believe, if you're on Medicaid. Have y'all incorporated that?
Well, currently, yes, sir. I will definitely look over that just to stay on, to be for sure, but just as far as the pre-K is only for our Shelby County School dependents, but we will incorporate that if it's not already, because I would just make sure, but I believe we do incorporate that.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I know y'all are different from the general, and that's what you told me, and I appreciate that.
It covers all of pre-K screenings, though. So once they get the screening at the clinic, it is good for the pre-K to get into pre-K for the requirements.
If I may say so, it's still amazing how much lead is out there.
Ms. Jones.
Mr. Superintendent, I think this is a great idea. I guess this is an expansion of what we already offer, or is it the same level that we've been offering all along? That was my question.
Small.
The medical, the health care.
It's the same level. It's the same clinic.
Same. Okay, so we just have the two locations.
Yes, ma'am. We've always had the two locations, the one on Flicker and then the one out at Grays Creek.
Right. So I guess my comment would be, I think that we really need to look at how we expand that, because with increasing co-pays and things of that nature, I work for an entity who saw the increase and the need, and they've now multiplied the locations, and they've actually located these health services within the larger buildings where several hundred employees work, so you don't even have to drive, and that's really helping drive a conversation about costs. So I think that I agree with this, but I think that I'm looking at the locations and the access and the amount of time it takes an employee to drive one of these. We should probably have one here. And I don't know if we are able to use the Methodists that are located out in the city, or just these two?
This contract is just to subsidize the cost for the employee health clinic. So the one on Flickr is just right down the street. I do think when we look at the plans for the move to the building on Jackson, that could be an opportunity for us to have an on-site clinic as opposed to what these are called near-site clinics.
Right. It would really help in terms of efficiency, in terms of the staff, employee time, just not having to go off-site. So I think it's a great idea. We just need to look at how we expand it.
And Mr. Superintendent, could you let us know how many of our employees are utilizing the Grays Creek? Because if we need to move that location, if we're not having much utilization, it may be prudent for us to even think about this school year moving that location.
I will say that the utilization for that facility is pretty low. Over the past years, we have seen about a 5% increase year over year in terms of utilization, but most of that has been attributed to the Flickr location, which is the one closest to this building.
So east or south, I think you probably have a lot of opportunity for those schools. So it'd be nice for us to think about best utilization. Ms. Cornell, you didn't have an additional question, correct?
No, I have one more.
His light is on.
I'm sorry if I misled you. It's my understanding that something in the workers' comp rules, it's my understanding something in the workers' comp rules says that if a teacher gets injured, they have to go to a clinic within a certain period of time, unless they think it's life-threatening. Of course, if it's really life-threatening, they may not be conscious, but
That's correct. It's part of our accident on the job policy as a way to triage accidental injuries at the workplace. We do refer them to the health clinic for the initial consultation, unless it is a life-threatening injury or accident.
Okay, let's say you can't be sure that it's life-threatening, but the clinic's closed.
Then you go to the nearest emergency room,
okay,
and Mr. Crone and his team will take care of it.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no other lights, we're going to move on to 8.1, proposed apologies, first reading.
I think we skipped one, Madam Chair. The 7.25 is the last year, the
Oh, I'm sorry.
messenger. The messenger.
In my haste, 7.25, West Interactive Messenger, DBA School Messenger.
I think everybody's familiar with that.
Ms. Bibbs?
So I enjoy this time of year. Every year I come and say the same thing around School Messenger. I did look at your other considerations, Chief Powers, around why we're not looking at something else. But I will say this, the thing about School Messenger that we're working on is it does not text you in a way in which I think is most convenient for parents to be able to see the information. I still would like to see us work on that. There has got to be some other way that if we say we're going to text a parent, there's not 2 to 3 other steps that we go to in order to get the message.
Yeah, we agree with that, Ms. Bibbs. Actually, this is the last year we're renewing our contract based on the original RFP that we did. So our goal is that we're going to start a new RFP process for a new brand, whatever new system we'd like to get. And we also like to include a website platform into that system so we can have a really good comprehensive content management system. So in the time of emergencies or whenever we need to deploy a message that goes to all of our schools, all of our families, it gets repeated in our websites, our app, our text messages, our calls, and everything is consistent all throughout.
All right.
So that's our goal for next year.
That's good. I think we've been asking for this for the past 3 years. I just want to put that note out there. The other thing is, I think other considerations, I'm going to pick on you a little bit about saying require additional training for principals and designated school staff. We're in the business of training, so I don't think that's a good reason to say we can't pick something.
Right, no, the simplicity right now is because they're all very familiar with it. So because this is the last year, then next year when we go through a brand new system, then we'll rehaul everything again.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Ms. Love?
So yes, the board member Bibbs, but I do want to give you an applause on adding these well, I know for me, my students and others into one message. So now I no longer receive 2 messages. I receive one for the family. So thank you.
That makes me very happy. I love when parents say that they got 5 calls and 3 texts. That's okay with me.
Okay, Superintendent, I think we're now ready to move to 8.1, proposed policies first reading.
I think this is the policy 2010. It's the SCS Minority Women and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Participation. I know the board has been very involved in this. This will be the first reading on next week.
Ms. Jones?
And I just want to, we did have a committee meeting. We went over this, and there were some changes suggested, but I'm encouraging all board members to, it's only 30 pages, I think, 32 pages.
Only.
And so everyone who hasn't read it, which probably is only maybe one board member, so I'm encouraging you to read it. In between your sidebar, I'm encouraging board members to really read this 30-page document. It's our diversity
Minority and women
program, and so I just wanted to make that pitch for everybody to make sure they read this document, because it's going to guide what we do, and then we don't want to let this opportunity pass, and then staff brings forward some recommendations and some processes, and then we'll say, why did you do that? And that's because it was in the program that we should have read.
8.2, proposed policy, second reading.
Yeah, I think that's been through IBO, and it's the second reading on the multi-hazard emergency policy.
Seeing no other lights, if nothing further before this board, this meeting is adjourned. Where you going, Mike? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now move us to our special call meeting. This is kind of on the strip. Do you have the strip?
So where did we figure out what we call it? They're gonna have a better chance to succeed. Well, hold on. The question is, it's a question I have, is it 4-4? Like, I'm trying to figure out when they get 5 or 6. Kim said no sport. Really, I hadn't talked to they said it was no sport, and I don't know about Scott. That's just Willie's guy, Kevin.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is a special call meeting of the Shelby County Board, the Tuesday, August 29th special call meeting. The purpose of today's meeting is to take action on the amended charter school applications. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We are now, the question is on the approval of the agenda. The approval of the agenda.
Actually, there's no approval of this agenda.
Okay.
Shouldn't be. Find out if everybody's here.
Yeah, look, can we do a roll call vote? Ms. Anthony?
Board Member Caldwell. Board Member Orgel. Board Member Woods.
Here.
Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick.
Here.
Board Member Jones. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Cornell. Board Chair Avant.
Here.
You have 7 present.
We have a quorum. We'll now move to public comments. Tennessee law makes no specific provisions for the participation of the public at meetings of local school boards of education. However, board policy provides that not more than 30 minutes of each regular business and special call meeting shall be devoted to the public comment. Speakers must state their name, home address, organization he or she is representing, if any, and subject of the presentation before they are permitted to proceed. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs that concern them. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the school system, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. The chairman shall have the authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to board rules. The timer projected on the screen to your right and directly behind the board will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. When you hear 2 bells, your time has expired. How many speakers? We have 12 speakers. If, as I call your name, please come to the podium. Each speaker will have 2.5 minutes. I'll begin with Dr. John Smorelli, Christy Baird, and then Vanessa Brown. Yes. Can we assist Dr. Smorelli? Yes, I think it's on.
Okay, now we're good here. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is John Smorelli. I live at 2649 Overlook Drive in Germantown, Tennessee, but spend most of my waking hours in Memphis, Tennessee. I stand before you as a college president and proud supporter of the Compass Community Schools. I'm also the chair of the founding board of the Compass Community Schools, the New Day Schools Incorporated, as well as an advocate for quality education in Memphis. As most of you know, CBU and I personally have been involved in the revitalization of STEAM, Middle College High School, involved in the Transition Planning Commission, so verifying my commitment to Memphis and Shelby County schools. And I firmly believe that the Compass will be nothing short of a pillar to our city's educational community. Compass Community Schools have been structured for success. Our board selected Christy Baird to serve as executive director. She's a proven, successful leader who has a track record of achieving strong academic progress for her students. She currently serves as superintendent of Jubilee Schools, a network of 8 schools where students consistently perform at the national average. Under her leadership, Jubilee has been widely recognized for its success in urban education. Operationally, Compass is governed by a strong board of education and community advocates, including myself. School facilities have been identified, and $1 a year leases have been secured in the proposed campuses. Additionally, our board has worked to secure necessary philanthropic support to launch these schools and sustain efforts. Again, I support Compass Community Schools. We need these schools in our community for families who want schools and Memphis children who will ultimately benefit. Please vote yes for Compass Community Schools. Thank you much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Christy Baird, and my address is 245 Main Street, and I represent Compass Community Schools. I have been selected to serve as the Executive Director of Compass Community Schools. For more than 20 years, I have had the honor of serving Memphis children as a teacher, principal, and system leader. I am and continue to be committed to serving students entrusted to my care. As the leader of Compass Community Schools, it is my mission to prepare students for college and lifelong success by developing the whole child through a focus on academic excellence, values-based character education, and service learning in the community. Throughout the application process, we have greatly valued the feedback we've received from the Shelby County schools. And after taking to heart the feedback on our initial applications, we reduced the total number of applications from 9 to 6 to ensure we open fully staffed strong charter schools for the 1920 academic year. We made this decision based on the helpful feedback you shared with us. Compass schools will be intentionally small, serving approximately 230 students per school. It is our goal to open all 6 schools for which we have submitted revised applications. Equally important, we desire to be authorized under Shelby County Schools and become a part of the Shelby County Schools family. As a leader and believer in quality education options for Memphis children, I stand firmly behind Compass Community Schools' vision. Our vision is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s ideal of education: intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. This true education, provided within a supportive, joyful, and hopeful school culture, will prepare Compass students to be positive agents of change in our communities. I ask that you please vote yes today for Compass Community Schools. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Brown, 1647 Delwood Avenue, Fraser, Tennessee, 38127. I am here as a community leader. I am here as a parent. I am here as a friend to support Compass Community Schools. My girls right now belong to a school that is giving them challenges. And being a mother of 8, I found that I have to look at different schools in order for my children to have that challenge. Researching Compass has told me that this is the place for my 2 young ladies. One young lady in 2nd grade reading 4th grade level, the other in 4th grade reading 8th grade level. I am asking that you support me as a parent to be able to have my children get the best that they ever can have. All of my children have had to go to different schools. I do not mind driving to different schools, but I am a supporter of charter because my children demand and they should have choice. I think every parent should have choice in the best that we can get. And I'm sorry I'm being so emotional, but this is thoroughly important to me of how the world is running right now. And Miss Christie has a plan. I've read the plan. I am encouraged about the plan, and I see where these children are going. I'm selfish when I talk about my 2 girls, but I'm talking about all the children. As a community leader, a director at Lifeline to Success, a reentry program in Fraser, I have 31 people that are learning how to be parents, and I have 31 people that are learning that they have to figure out where their children can go and learn and be comfortable. And I ask you to please support us and open up the community school. I ask you to please support my children and open up this school. I ask you to please support this community and open up this school. Thank you for your time. God bless.
The next 3 speakers are Emily Greer, Carmen Cooley, and Kay Reginald Hill.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Greer. My address is 93 Village Lane. I'm a founding member of Compass Community Schools Governing Board, New Day Schools Incorporated, and I'm here today to voice my zealous support for Compass. The New Day Board of Directors is confident that Compass Community Schools is positively positioned to successfully operate all 6 proposed school locations. From the proven leadership of Christy Baird, who we've selected to serve as our executive director, to the philanthropic support secured to sustain Compass for the future, Compass is ready to move forward to service communities across Memphis. We all want what's best for the children in Memphis, Tennessee, and that starts with giving them access to quality educational options. It is our duty to ensure that our children have access to the best opportunities for long-term academic success, and that's exactly what Compass represents. We've listened to your feedback, and we've adjusted our applications accordingly. We've also listened to the families and the communities where Compass Community Schools seek to serve, and today I'm here along with all the other supporters of Compass Community Schools to ask you to please vote yes. Vote yes for advancing education in Memphis. Vote yes for providing a high-quality educational experience for our future young leaders. Vote yes for Compass Community Schools. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Cooley. I reside at 6854 Glenwick Drive in Memphis, and I represent Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering. I have been a staff member at Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering since 2006, the year that I received my teaching license. And I've seen the population at Mace morph. I've seen an ebb and flow of different types of students over time. I've also watched the steady development of programs and initiatives which work best for children. And I would not be there if I didn't believe we were doing a work that was worthwhile. We've been in need of an elementary school for quite some time. We are the state's first charter school, opened in 2003. We opened with 7th grade then added grades 6 through 12 from that time. We've been working with students who have come to us with severe disadvantages and severe deficiencies from time to time, and we have done the work that has been necessary to bring those students to a level that they would not have been able to get otherwise. As you know, last year, Mace received TVAS scores of 5 in all possible categories, and we were the only school to do that in the Shelby County Schools District for a school that had a grade band of 6 through 12. We have now developed partnerships with corporations and organizations all over the city, and our students on a daily basis go and participate in those partnerships, often earning college scholarships, college credit, and real-life work experience. Our annual scholarship levels are over now $12 million per year, with the average student receiving about $200,000 apiece. Every graduate that leaves Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering is accepted to college, and we just want now to make sure that we're preparing a foundation that is worthy of the levels of success that we expect from our students. We are not intending to open a large network of school. We're simply wanting to add the foundation to a program that has already been built. We've also receiving over $1 million in grants from the community and from the state and federal governments each year, and we believe that we are now ready to begin new work by creating an elementary school at Mace. Thank you.
Our next set of speakers is Arnest Martin, Jacquel Rogers, and Megan Corillo.
Good afternoon. My name is Kendra Ragland Hill. I'm the parent of 3 children attending Mace, 2 of which attend there now. I implore you to recant your decision and vote yes for the school. Mace has been a blessing to our family, and I offer the opportunity for you all to offer an equitable education for families such as mine with multiple children. Thank you and have a good evening.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Rogers, and I'm in the 8th grade, and I've been attending Mace since I was in the 6th grade. I believe that I've grown academically from the 6th to the 8th grade. So when I was in elementary school, I wish that Mace had an elementary school so we can build more students and more academically and respectful peers, teachers, and staff to our school. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Renaya Pullum, and I've been attending Mace for 3 years, since I was in 9th grade. The teachers are amazing, and the staff understands each student's learning abilities. When I first came to Mace, I was academically unstable, but I can assure you that over a period of time, that I've grown, now I'm taking all honors classes. I believe that I believe that voting yes for Mace Elementary School is a great decision. Starting a young level of schooling will help promote higher graduation rates. Thank you.
So we went a little out of turn. I'm going to ask Arness Martin, Jacquel Rogers, and Megan Cowill to come forward.
Yes, hi, my name is Arnest Martin Jr. I am currently the outreach coordinator for Abundant Grace Fellowship Church, and I'm also a part of the Fairleigh High Alumni Association and a proud graduate of Fairleigh, the class of 1981. Within the last couple of years, we've partnership with not only Fairleigh but Hillcrest because of the Green Dot system and with them being in Whitehaven. And we've often made inroads into helping them do things that they could not do. Simple things that we found out to keep them from being suspended, the children that is, belts, backpacks, staying in uniform, things that they put in place to make sure the students stay in school. Mr. Bates advised us as the Alumni Association, if we can free him up from 8 to 4, he will make sure they get an education. But if we can step in and fill some of those voids in the afternoon with programs on Saturday, feeding them for ACT prepping, then he will make sure that those kids would score high and graduate and make them proud bulldogs, such as myself and the other classes. I would like to say that voting yes for this feeder school K through 8 will be an awesome experience for these young people. I had the pleasure of subbing after retiring from FedEx at a charter school, Omni Prep, and there I was exposed to all of the technological advances that these kids were exposed to. Unfortunately for my nieces, they had to go to a private institution to receive such a high grade of education. We do need those in our neighborhood, and I hope that you would say yes to give them those opportunities. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jacquel Rogers. I live at 4802 East Shore Drive, and I work for Greenup Public Schools as the Director of Community Engagement and Public Relations. We have been in the Whitehaven community for 5 years, and we've learned several things. And what we have learned is that many of the students who come to us at Hillcrest and at Fairleigh may not have had all of the academic opportunities that they would need to make them successful. Having the chance to have a K-8 system in Whitehaven would not only give us the opportunity to bring those students into our academic model, preparing them for college leadership in life like many of our other colleagues, but we will be able to create a feeder pattern where we know that our students would be prepared, they would come to 9th grade, reading on grade level, and that they would be ready to face the rigors of college to meet the necessary requirements of the ACT. So one of the things that we have done in the Whitehaven community is build very strong relationships with our partners such as Abundant Grace. We have worked with other organizations to make sure that our students and families have the resources they need, and making sure that we are able to do that at an earlier age ensures even more that our students will have those opportunities. We believe that all students have the ability to learn at high levels and to meet the rigors and the expectations of college and life beyond that. And so we are asking for the opportunity to provide that K-8 system in Whitehaven so that we can also feed them into high school and see them beyond and make sure that they are ready for college leadership and life. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Quayle. I live at 155 Harbor Isle Circle North, and I serve as the Executive Director of Greenup Public Schools, Tennessee. Thank you for allowing us an opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to share that Greenup has a 20-year history of running high-performing middle and high schools across 3 states. We serve both transformation schools and independent schools. We have shown tremendous growth in the following areas: school culture, academic growth, and family and student satisfaction. As many of you may or may not know, Green Dot, 3 of the 5 Green Dot schools in Tennessee earned a TVOS 5 this year, including our middle schools. We have a proven middle school model, and including Bluff City High School, the first independent charter high school that we have opened in the city of Memphis. Our rationale for adding a K-8 program is clear. 75% of the students who enter Hillcrest High School and Fairleigh High School are reading at the 5th grade level or below. While there are some solid options in Whitehaven for elementary schools, I believe the Shelby County Schools has some data that will suggest there are a lot of underserved seats, and there is a high need for quality elementary and middle school seats in the Whitehaven neighborhood. Despite our ability to grow students at multiple grade levels, we are unable to make up the gaps of having to grow students 4 to 6 extra years in 1 year. In addition, we would like to suggest that Shelby County or Whitehaven area has 80% of the seats that are in less than quality seats, that are identified in less than quality seats. Currently, we have a strong 5-year history and working successful relationship with the Achievement School District. And last year, as I believe people know, we opened the first charter school authorized by the State Board of Education. We have a very positive first year with them, and we want to continue that partnership as well. I'm here to explain that we are interested in beginning a partnership with Shelby County Schools, and we hope that this Whitehaven K-8 school can be the first opportunity to begin to build that partnership. Thank you.
Larry Neal.
Good evening. My name is Larry Neal. I live at 3776 Northwood Drive. I am the board chair for Green Dot Tennessee, also a commercial lender here with Simmons Bank. I was first introduced into education reform when I joined Teach for America in 2006 through 2008 in Lake Village, Arkansas. That passion has not subsided. I've remained involved in education despite my departure out of the field. We are building a stronger school system for all children, particularly in Whitehaven, with our request today. The thing that impressed me most the first time I visited Hillcrest High School, where my mother-in-law attended, was the culture. There was not a culture of fear in the hallways. I believe the culture is being set to create an environment conducive to learning at all of our schools in Memphis. It's no secret that ASD schools haven't turned around scores as quickly as desired. However, schools are in place through the ASD because the status quo wasn't working and our families weren't satisfied. That was our reason for charters to begin with. With an approval and consideration, Shelby County Schools would have some oversight of the approximately 2,000 students and families that we serve. Long term, we should be asking how best to serve all the schools in Shelby County. Ultimately, the desire is to grow out of the Achievement School District and back into SCS. Green Dot and SCS have an interesting history. It's pretty public. But we do have a successful organization with strong local leadership. I have all the faith in the world in Megan Quayle and her team to get out there and fight for our students and teachers on a daily basis. We are asking Shelby County Schools to consider this a chance for us to start that relationship over again with a yes vote for our elementary school in Whitehaven. Thank you.
Board members, we now have before us 2 items. One is for, based on the recommendations of the administration, one is the application for recommended charter school applications, and the other is for recommendation of denial. So I'm going to move to just change the order. We're going to talk about the denials first. I'd like to take a motion for applications that were recommended by the administration for denial. I have a motion by Mr. McCormick and a second by Mr. Woods. I will now entertain questions or discussion. Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So I do have a question around the MACE application. I think when we definitely, it shows their growth over time, and I think I just want to have a stronger understanding of around the denial, considering we know that they did have gains versus them being denied, and then we have some yeses that are questionable.
Superintendent, is there someone from the administration could answer?
Ms. Robinson.
So when we look at, I've got a microphone. So when we look at their overall school performance, if we're looking at their achievement data, if we're looking at 17, 18, in the area of science, there were some drops both in the high school, and also if we look at ELA data and math, there were drops from 2017 and 2018. So that was one primary area that we looked at. And then we also looked at their TVAS composite. So in 2013, they were at a 5. In 2014, they were at a 1. And then 2015, they were at a 3. So we looked at a combination of both TVAS and achievement data. And then, of course, we also looked at the school performance data for all of our schools. Just one moment. So if we looked at the school performance framework, we did a 2012 to 2015 SPF. MACE was at 2.42. In 2017, they were at a 4.1. But again, we looked at a combination of achievement growth and then also their school performance framework. And then also in their application, they were discussing the need for an elementary school, and the application included the school performance framework data of Snowden, which was a 3.27 out of 5. But they didn't include downtown elementary, which was at a 4.63 and a 5.0, which are two Shelby County schools, optional schools, which are high quality options. Yes, and then we also discussed again the Mace High School students and their mastery of science in the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other lights. You gotta be quicker on the draw, Mike. Go ahead, you're
Okay.
acknowledged.
All right, now, there was a motion to examine the list of those denied, or was there a motion to deny?
It was a motion to deny, based on the recommendation of the administration.
Okay, and so there was a motion to deny which schools?
The motion before us is to deny approval for Aspire Coleman, Blueprint Avoda, Cornerstone Prep Middle, Green Dot, Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering, Compass Community Downtown School, Compass Community South School South Memphis. And that is
What?
Compass Community School, Whitehaven, and Harvest International. I apologize, my sheets have gotten, these are for those schools that have been recommended by the administration for denial. Board Member Jones?
A yes vote would be
A denial.
to
If you
agree-
vote yes, that would be
agree with the
denial.
recommendation to
A
deny.
recommendation to deny.
I've got a question.
Mr. Cornell, your
Yeah,
question?
I was wondering why the administration decided to deny one campus school out of the rest.
So the
Three out of the rest.
a couple of the Compass schools did not resubmit an application. So they did not have an amended application on the second attempt. And so by virtue of that, they didn't fix what was wrong with their first application, so we're recommending it for denial.
Okay. And Madam Chair, then when this motion passes, if this motion passes as stated, then those that would be left would be the ones that were approved.
If there's a yes, we'd have to take a motion.
Okay. I'd like to be recognized at some point on that motion.
Sure. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member Orville. Board Member Woods.
Yes.
Board Member Love.
Yes.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Jones. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Cornell.
Aye.
Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 in the affirmative.
That motion passes. We are now, I'd like to get a motion for approval. This is an approval for schools recommended by the administration, which includes Astor College Prep, Compass Community School Berkeley, Compass Community School Binghamton, Compass Community School Fraser, Compass Community School Hickory Hill, Compass Community School Midtown, Compass Community School Orange Mound, Freedom Prep Sherwood Forest, and Memphis Merritt. I have a motion by Mr. McCormick and a second by Ms. Jones. I now will entertain questions and or comments. Mr. Cornell, you're recognized.
I'm going to wait.
Ms. Love.
So I do want to know, has there been any conversation or research around, is this an actual conversion? This is only geared towards the Compass schools. Is this considered an actual conversion?
Can you speak into the microphone a little bit, Ms. Love?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Has there been any conversation or research done surrounding the Compass schools being an actual conversion?
Ms. Urban.
Board Member Love, to answer your question, the answer is yes. That question was actually presented to the Attorney General for an opinion. The AG's office did decline to opine on that question, so there's no legal guidance about how to interpret the conversion statute, and so as we sit here today, it's unsettled. It's an unsettled area of the law.
Do you have another question?
So did they give a reason why they declined to give an opinion?
Yes. Oddly, the response was they viewed it as too specific of a legal question, and so that was their response.
Interesting. And another, I guess another concern, and this is going back to Mace. I know that we're being asked to approve. Yeah, okay, I understand it's not on consideration, but we're being asked to approve several schools with no track record. And then, just putting it out there. And then for the Compass Community School in Fraser, how many students do they currently have?
Let me pull up the summary.
Is this the projected amount?
Yeah.
No. How many do they currently have now?
They're projecting a year one enrollment of 180, which isn't totally answering your question. I'll have to look into the Their projected enrollment for year one would be 180, but I hear you asking the question, how many do they have currently? I'll just need a second to look into that.
Okay. And then also on, I believe it was page 222 in the Compass School Fraser, they have Perea instead of New Days. I think that needs to be corrected.
Is that in the amended application or the original application?
I think it's the original.
Yeah, that was one of the pieces
So
of
can
feedback.
you speak up, Mr.
I'm
Leon?
sorry.
Board members are having a hard time hearing you. We
I
had to get on
apologize.
Mr. Ray a little earlier about his very white voice.
One
so
of
if you
the
could.
pieces of feedback that we did have for Compass in their original application was that they did have errors like that. We didn't see any of those errors in their amended application, which is why I asked about whether it was original or amended.
Okay, so it was fixed.
It was, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Love, no other questions at this point. Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So I did mention this in committee around, as you look at what's on the recommendation for approval, I have a huge concern around saying 3 schools going into one community with the same grade level. You know, I'm bringing it up again around us as a board, as you look in a community around and saying yes in oversaturation of that community. I think I did ask, and then I also asked another question around Memphis Merritt Academy, around getting information around that particular school being a plant and they just planted a school there for that same grade level? And was that put into consideration? Because when I asked the question, everybody around the room seemed to look and go, oh, I didn't realize there was one in that community. So I just want to know the answer regarding that, those two things. Because did not get an answer to either one.
Well, I apologize on the second. When you asked the question, I thought that you said that, in fact, that was the case, so we didn't look into it because when you said, yes, that is the case, we just decided you had the answer you needed.
Well, not the question of where it's located, but more so around how does it affect a community.
Right.
When you're saying you're going to put another school in there with the same grade level and this similar programming right literally around the corner, where we're also making investments in the community with a brand new school. So I'm just saying, was that a factor that was considered when this recommendation happened?
It was not a factor.
Okay. My next question will be around those K-8s or 5-8s rather for Orange Mound, Sherwood, Seattle, that whole community, and saying doing 3 brand new schools that are startups in a community.
Ms. Bibbs, can you speak into the microphone a little bit?
Sorry. Okay, we're all having that problem today.
Yes.
When we look at was there an assessment done around how does that impact that community? Not only just financially, but also just system-wide regarding students, regarding how does that change what that looks like in that community. I know that Mr. Cornell wasn't at the meeting when we asked the question, but that is something I know he's asked since then. So I just think we need to be prepared for what does that look like, because you essentially have said one is one that don't have a track record and one does. So when we look at saying yes to things, I just want to think about what does that look like for that community.
So per the board's request in the committee meeting, Lynn Johnson and Michelle Stewart came together to look at financial and enrollment impacts. And I believe Chief Johnson is prepared to share that analysis.
Okay.
I think Board Member Bibbs that he passed out this handout that did the fiscal analysis. If the board wants to do the presentation, he's prepared to do it. But I do want to just take a second, and because you're asking all the right questions and many of the questions that we wrestle with as we go through the application, but just I think it's important for the public to know that the state has a rubric that you can consider. Now the board, passed a charter compact, and I know that we're all working towards having detailed policies that give us more guidance as to what to look at as we're trying to approve these applications, but that policy work has not been completed yet. So until the full-scale policy that I know the board is working on gets in place, we're just going strictly by the rubric. So I think that when we talk about issues of neighborhood saturation, we talk about issues of, fiscal impact, all these different kinds of things I think are ripe. We're going to have 60-plus charters. And I think that we all want to have great schools, and just like we have schools that are struggling, we have a number of charter schools that are struggling. So I think at the end of the day that we've got to make sure as we go through this cycle again next year, we've got some clear and strong policies about what other factors the board wants us to look at as we consider these applications. So I think if the board wants to hear, if you want to hear from Mr. Johnson, he can do the presentation if the board, if that's the board's will.
And I was just really, I don't know if it's pulled out for that community in particular, just because we're talking about 3 schools plus the schools that are there, all asking for the exact same students.
And I think too, to your point, Ms. Bibbs, like that's when the policies come in, because the reality is that, just no surprise, we have way too many schools in Memphis. Whether it's district-run schools, charter schools, we've got, pushing 250-plus schools with 120,000 kids. So what we really need to work towards is truly figuring out the right number of schools to have, and then irrespective of who operates those schools, we need to make sure we're right-sized, because now we're just spreading ourselves even more thin. And so I think that as the board thinks about policies, quality of school has to be on the board, and looking at the neighborhood and the saturation needs to be on the board. There's a host of other issues I think that the board can certainly look at, but absent those policies, that's why we just went to the rubric.
Well, I definitely wanted to put it out here for my colleagues and to the listening public around how these decisions are made and some of the things as we move forward. Yes, through the charter compact work, but more importantly around how we look at communities. And I'm pushing us around making sure we put this in writing, because it's real different when you're just saying yes or no based upon a piece of paper versus we really have to make sure we spend time looking at how this impact our communities.
And Ms. Love, did you have another question?
So I did want to state this, that I know that we received a financial impact of charter schools, but unless the charter operators are stating or putting in writing that they are only going to receive children from the neighborhood in which they're going in, we cannot say that the Fraser community will have little to no impact. Because what I do know is we have about 6 charter buses that come into the Fraser community every day, taking children out of that community. And what I also know is all of those charter schools are not high quality. And even like I stated in our meeting, for us to say, or I'm sorry, for the administration to say that there is a need all the way through Shelby County, I think that reflects the administration. That's what I think. Let me finish, Superintendent. Let me finish. So even what Board Member Bibb stated, with 3 charter schools going into one community, what does that do for our neighborhood schools? And what does that do for our teachers and principals who are in that school every day working their butts off? And what does that do when we tell them that they have to increase their enrollment? And what does that do to parents when they want to know why my child doesn't have this program, why this sport or this activity is not in my child's school? So I think that we need to look at all of this. And like the superintendent said, we have to put some things in policy. And you know, I welcome the challenge, putting things in policy, but this right here saying that a community will have little to no impact, unless they're saying that they're only going to take kids from the neighborhood in which they're in, this is a joke. It's not the truth.
So, Superintendent, I'm going to let Board Member Cornell, and then you can respond.
I don't mind if he wants.
Okay.
If you want to respond, we can have a conversation.
No, I just, again, and this is really more so, Ms. Love, for the listening public, that, you know, the board can set forth policies to regulate the issuance of charters. We have 60+ charter schools, and there are some that are very high quality. We should look to growing those. But we have a lot of schools that are not high quality. We should look to close those. And when you look at just the same way we close district-run schools, the same way we give treatment to district-run schools, you know, but right now, there is not one policy on how we approve charters. Like you could say, we're gonna look at the impact of the saturation of a neighborhood. I mean, you're right. I mean, because the reality is that if you got 12 schools in a 3-mile radius and 5 of them are charters and 7 of them are district-run schools and all of them are under-enrolled and all of them are underperformed, we're not serving kids well with that scenario. But the state of the way things are right now, we looked at these applications, you know, they met the rubric, and we didn't consider things like, I think it's 3 schools going in Orange Mound, and that's gonna create some challenges as we try to figure it out. But absent guidance saying, look at this, don't look at that, then we have to default to the rubric. And I think that's the way we approach this process.
Mr. Cornell?
Well, it definitely would be 3 schools in one area. And as I had mentioned in committee, we don't really know. Let me put it this way. We know that Dunbar is at a 5, and that's not shown on this material.
Speak into the microphone, please. Speak into the microphone.
We know that Dunbar is a 5, and that's not shown on this material. We also know that if Cherokee has a problem, we also know that Sharp, many students from Sharp were just sent to Cherokee. We also know that Airways was rolled into Sherwood Middle. We also know that Hanley Aspire ASD feeds Sherwood Middle. There's a whole lot going on, and there's a whole lot of struggling going on, and a lot of successes going on in that area that have to be taken into account before we put those, in my opinion, 3 schools into that section. So you can't just take these scores. There are things happening in these schools. What do we say to a principal who had to take 300 students from somewhere else? And it affects their scores. They may be struggling and working as hard as they can, but we don't need to reward the neighborhood by saying, well, we're going to end up putting 3 more schools in there and dividing up the money. So I appreciate the discussion, but I think we need to examine what's happening in a neighborhood before we put a load of schools in that neighborhood. I mean, we're just talking about, I see they added Seow, but originally we were only talking about basically a 2-mile area.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to you, Superintendent, is previously the administration has brought recommendation for closures before to this body. I think before we had looked at financial reasons for considerations of financial challenges for some charter schools. Can you have your team quickly elaborate on reasons that have been brought before this body before for justifications of some of the closures previously?
Sure. I mean, during my tenure, there have been issues of compliance with one of our schools. We brought a slate of schools based on their academic performance. There have been schools that sort of have voluntarily given up their charter because of different financial issues. Those are the sort of the full spectrum of issues under, in the last 5 years.
And much like Superintendent, where we have a time frame in which we must approve charter schools, is there a time frame in which this body should anticipate school closure recommendations brought before it?
Yeah,
and if so, when is that?
Yeah, what's laid out in the compact is essentially a 3-year process for schools to improve. But this year is a year where the priority list is run, and there's a state statute saying that any charter school that's on the priority list shall be revoked by the chartering authority, which is our board. And the real estate policy, which has the policy for closures in it, says that we'll bring those to you within 30 days. So the priority list should be run at some point in mid-September. So at the October board meeting, it's very likely we're going to bring to you a list of charter school revocations that will take place at the end of this school year, so not immediately, for any charter school that is on the priority list.
Thank you. And so I guess what I want to close by saying, Superintendent, is why we often stand behind the administration and the great work that you guys do, either if it's supporting or denying a charter school. We count on the administration, we count on your staff to bring those recommendations to us. We don't, while it's the board purview to create sound policy, we vote on what's brought before this body, and that's brought by the charter team. And so as we continue to have this conversation each year about the continued growth of charter schools and its impact, if we're going to close charter schools, particularly low-performing ones, we count on the administration to bring those recommendations before us. Thank you.
So I would say, Mr. Woods, I'm glad to hear you say that, because we have been in this space where I'm just remembering, several months ago where the compact came and, pretty explicitly, our team was directed to, the board was going to do the policy work. So that's why we've kind of held out, because we didn't want to get in a situation where, not clear rules, because we've been down that road before. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that even in this policy development stage, you still want us to bring our best thinking around.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah. So just to be clear, while the board did indicate that there are some partnerships, some consulting work that's going on, we count on you guys as the experts on the ground every day to make sure you're vetting those policies and being a partner with us throughout that work.
Thank you.
Superintendent, I think we just need to make sure that there is a timeline in which we will have those policies before this board, so that we are making decisions in the best informed way. Absent those policies, obviously, the Charter Accountability Office has made decisions based on where we are with the rubric. I do think, as I mentioned in committee, that there has to be, to Ms. Bibbs' point, a conversation about saturation of neighborhoods, because it does not benefit schools in any way to have additional schools when we're not talking about the highest quality schools. And that means for district schools as well as traditional schools as well as charter schools. Ms. Love, this is your second time, and
Oh, I was just waiting on the answer to the, how many students they currently have now before we vote.
It wasn't in their application, so we're gonna have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry.
is there someone that could answer the question from the staff?
No, their projected enrollment is in their application, but the current enrollment at their school is not in their application, so we're just gonna have to do some more research and circle back to the board.
You know, I even wonder, Madam Chair, I wonder if anybody in the audience does work with the school now and can just give the board an idea what the current enrollment is. I don't know if.
And which school specific, Ms. Love?
Fraser.
Compass Fraser.
Well, currently at Compass Fraser, there are 0 students because we haven't been approved. But if you're referring to Our Lady of Sorrows.
Yes, how many students does Old Lady of Sorrows have at this moment?
190.
So board members are requesting if, Ms. Baird, if we could get the number for how many students are enrolled in each of the schools, the prior schools. So before us, we have Compass School, Berclair. If there's a number of how many students.
In Berclair, I believe we have about, it's about 155.
Compass School, Binghamton.
In the Binghamton School, I believe that number is 210.
Hickory Hill.
223.
Midtown.
237.
And Orange Mound.
185.
Okay. Does that satisfy board members' questions? Seeing no further lots, can we have a roll call vote, please? Mr. Cornell.
Motion.
Mr. Cornell.
I have a motion for discussion. I move that we divide the question for each school.
There is a motion to divide the question, divide the recommendation for each individual school. Yeah. So that's a motion. I have to have a second. There's a motion and a second. Can we need to vote on dividing the question. This is to divide the question for each individual school. To vote per school.
But Madam Chair, I got
Yeah, but
discussion. No, it's non-debatable. Oh, that was not debatable?
it's not debatable.
Oh, okay.
Can I get a roll call vote? This is on division of the motion to vote individually on each school. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member Orville? No. Board Member Woods?
No.
Board Member Love?
Yes.
Board Member McCormick? No. Board Member Jones? No. Board Member Bibbs? Yes. Board Member Cornell?
Yes.
Board Chair Avant?
No.
You have 5 in the negative and 3 in the affirmative.
Okay, so that motion fails. So the motion before, we're calling the question, the motion before us is for approval of the schools aforementioned. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member Orville? Aye. Board Member Woods?
Aye.
Board Member Love?
No.
Board Member McCormick? Aye. Board Member Jones? Board Member Bibbs? Board Member Cornell?
No.
Board Chair Avant?
Aye.
You have 5 in the affirmative and 3 in the negative.
So the motion passes. Board members, I'd like to ask the audience, we have Seeing no other items, this meeting is adjourned. There is no statement there.
I have a statement.
Meeting adjourned.